Today, we have a timely topic for you, and that is keeping your programs relevant to the job market through involving industry. We know that most of our audience interact in some format with industry, whether through having guest lectures or informal discussions with industry. And today, we want to talk to you about upgrading this engagement with industry to include them in a formal and systematic way in the design of your education programs. The job market is changing, and it is changing fast. Jobs are becoming obsolete and being created on an ongoing basis. Technology is developing faster than any academic institution can keep up, and that is why it's essential that education institutions collaborate with employers in a systematic way to ensure their programs are not becoming obsolete. And more importantly, that they are setting their graduates up for success, which we know all of you here in our audience care about the most. So in this webinar, we're going to explore ways in which you, education institutions, can engage with industry in a formal way and take practical steps to ensure your programs are consistently up to date. There are different formats for doing this, but one of the most widespread one is called a Program Advisory Committee, or a PAC. I will be using that word and industry-led programs interchangeably. So we have a great panel of speakers for you. I'm delighted to introduce them. We have Ruben Dario Bello. He is the head of the Department of Industrial Engineering at Continental University in Peru. Besides his teaching role, he's also responsible for achieving program accreditation. And in addition to his academic experience, he has experience in the private sector through occupying logistics and production management positions in mining, construction, and industrial sectors. Welcome, Ruben. We have Solomon Seki Apia. He's still joining. He's having some technical issues because of the network currently in Ghana, but he's doing his best to join right now. He is the CEO of Electrical Safety Management, an electrical industrial design company in Ghana. He's also the secretary to the Electrical Contractors Association in Ghana and a member of the Program Advisory Committee for the Electrical Engineering Department at the Takoradi Technical University. Now, Takoradi is one of the most active technical universities in Ghana when it comes to engaging industry in a systematic way, and they are already engaging industry before working. They had already been engaging with industry before working with us, the IFC Vitae team. And after working with us, they have actually set up 23 industry-led committees. And finally, we have our Dr. Peter Costantino. He is Associate Professor at the School of Public Policy and Administration at York University. Peter is also Academic Director of the Ontario Legislator Internship Program. He is one of Canada's leading practitioner academics. He has worked at senior levels in the federal and provincial governments as a lobbyist in the college and university sector. Welcome, Peter. So let's dive right in, and I'd like to start with you, Peter. Let's start with the why. Why should universities and colleges attempt to engage employers in this formal way, whether through an industry-led advisory committee or a PAC or some other kind of format?
Thank you for the question, Amy. And I guess it comes down to this simple reality that the context that we're in is complicated. It's changing rapidly. There's more competition between institutions. We're seeing a greater emphasis on our clients or our students to simply not receive only an education, but to get skills and job-related knowledge and training so that they can enter the workplace more efficiently. Employers are saying, we've got to do more to have them transition to work easier, so we're not spending as much time training. And so as a faculty member, I can tell you one of the greatest challenges is building a curriculum that can remain relevant. And the minute you've left industry, as I have, having spent 20 years in government, I thought when I got to academia, I'd know what my students need because I came from there. But the truth is, the day you leave is the day you become out of touch with the nuances of the needs of that workplace. And so we engage with industry partners and truly a partnership because it's in everyone's interest and it is a win-win-win. Industry sees the value of ensuring that the pipeline of employees is well-trained and ready to go. Students see the value because there's less difficulty in transition. They're more likely to be competitive and to get jobs. And faculty see it as not an attack on their academic freedom or an insult to their ability to prepare students, but rather as a welcome opportunity to refine how we get the mix of theory and practice right so that our students, our graduates, are competitive. Some of this is driven by rankings. So we saw this a little bit in Peru, where the university we're working with wanted to be the very best it could be and worked very hard to improve everything that it did. Sometimes it's about that. Other times it's simply about preparing our workers so that our economy and our region and our country can be competitive. And in Canada, for example, we can't compete on price anymore in manufacturing. And so we're trying to build a knowledge economy. That means every single university and college has to be laser focused on what does industry need in the graduates we're preparing so that everyone can succeed.
How does the university set this up?
So it starts, I think, with a mindset, and that is, we can't do this alone. And so let's partner with relevant industry leaders in order to make us even better. And it starts with empowering our chairs that at the program level to say, think about what it is your program needs. Do an analysis. What are the strengths and the weaknesses? What are the opportunities and threats? And what do we need to take the curriculum and the program to the next level? And then think about who's out there. Now, a great place to start is with our alumni. And my experience has been that our alumni are an incredible source of energy and support because of either two scenarios. One is they came, they got what they needed, they were successful, and they want to pay it forward. Or in the case where I've had a few conversations where an alumni has said to me, I didn't get what I needed. And it took me too long to figure out what my employer needed. And I had to invest in my own learning and my employer had to invest in my learning. You're not doing a good enough job, which I love because that kind of passion is easily translated into, so come join us and make it better. And always, folks are willing to participate. So identifying first your alumni that might be willing to come back and help, but also other industry leaders, because it can't just be the folks that came through your program. And what we're looking for is a match between what the program needs and what is out there. And part of this relies on a very explicit conversation with potential PAC members, thinking very specifically of what you need, because my experience has been that if there's a mismatch between that, then the PAC doesn't accomplish what it needs. So for example, if someone thinks they're going to come to the PAC and they're going to tell stories to the classrooms, they're going to cut ribbons, that is probably not what we need. We need someone to mentor students, to prepare them for job interviews and career advice. They may not be willing to do that. Or for example, I can tell you from my own personal experience as a PAC member, I don't like fundraising, but I'll spend an enormous time on curriculum reform. So we're looking for people where there's an alignment between what the program needs and what they're willing and able to do. And then to employ them in a PAC that has a very specific set of goals and objectives, a terms of reference, and a work plan that sets measurable goals. And we would meet 2 times a year, might have some work that goes on in between, and we support those programmatic needs of that particular program.
Okay, so yeah, basically, first of all, decide on what you need and what you want as a program, and then go find the people that can do that. Start with your alumni, great source, and then align those expectations. That's, I think, a very good start. And then a question, are PAC members paid?
No, we're looking for volunteers. And this is why, in many ways, this is the kind of thing that's easy to get support within the university. And I can tell you, it doesn't matter what university, what program you're at in the world, there isn't a program that doesn't need those connections and that support. So we don't pay them, but they are, these are people who are motivated by wanting to pay it forward, wanting to give back. Now we acknowledge them. So we put their names and pictures on the program website. Often we have a kind of orientation session. In some of the universities where I've taught, they might get a pass to the fitness center, a sweatshirt or a hoodie, something to help make them part of the family, to get them on campus, to see the work that we do, to get to know the students, to see the state of the equipment and the facilities. And occasionally, really advanced programs will have a kind of awards night once a year where they acknowledge PAC members who've gone above and beyond. So again, part of the very explicit conversation, because if there are people who are going into this because they think they're going to get paid, they ought to know right up front that, this is something very different. And I can tell you, you would think that that would mean we didn't get good, motivated, hardworking PAC members, but it's in fact the opposite, because you get the right people who know exactly what you want from them. There's an alignment between your program needs and their skills and their motivations, the amount of time they have, and they hit the ground running. And so some PAC members, we often joke in our program, PAC members work harder than our faculty, because they're so determined to use their time and energies to make a difference.
That is funny. And I think our audience might appreciate that. So here's an opportunity to get people to work harder than you on your own program. So great opportunity. And it's interesting, that they don't get paid and they're motivated by this passion. Another question is, what kind of time do they need to commit?
So in Canada, for example, at our technical college level, in most jurisdictions, we've made having a PAC mandatory. So programs must have them. And the regulations say that the PAC must meet at least once a year. And so we often see that as a kind of basic level of analysis. They are provided information along the way as there are updates or as needed, but they come together once a year to consider a number of things. The truth is, in the beginning, there's a little bit more work. We get together, we sort of describe where we are and where we want to go. We try to understand what those deliverables are, and we set out a work plan. So the first time when we're establishing a PAC, there may be more work outside of the meeting time, because you may be reviewing the curriculum documents, or you may be working to set up internships and placements and co-ops and attachments that give students an opportunity to get experience in jobs, in industry, so they have real connections to the workplace. And then finally, it could well be that they need resources, fundraising, or equipment, or access to equipment. And so there can be more work than one or two meetings a year, but for the most part, that's a dialogue that occurs at that first PAC, where they set out the agenda, what's possible, what that work plan is, and a good program, the chair and the faculty that support it, treat the time of the PAC members with great respect. So when they do come together, it's a jam-packed agenda. Their time is very value added, and so we work to support them so they do what they do best, and not any of the minute taking or other things that just bog a committee down. So it depends, but it should be an efficient use of their time, because we respect that they are indeed busy and they are volunteers.
Right. Right. Yeah. So it's that management and as you said earlier, aligning expectations so they know what's expected and managing that. Thank you for that. So now let's hear from an education institution and about their experience in engaging industry and setting up an industry-led advisory committee in Latin America. So Ruben, I'd like to come to you and ask, why did you decide to formally engage industry in the design of your program? And what were your specific objectives?
Good morning, everybody. Basically, we need to get certified, and also we're going through a process of accreditation. So we needed to put together a pack. First, we manage it locally in each city, since we have many campuses, but then we understand that we have to also have a national one. So that's why we started with this. Also, we looked to work in the reviewing of our curricula and engaging our program with the industry here. Some other reasons were also to apply for research projects and some other bigger projects just with companies here in Peru. And also we wanted to get some agreements or contracts so we can more easily get jobs for our students and alumni.
Okay, so yeah, so you wanted the certification maybe, and number two is reviewing your curricula and making sure it's in line with the market, and then also creating these connections. Yeah. Okay, those are great reasons. And a big question we get from education institutions we work with a lot is how to connect with employers, because it's difficult, and sometimes if you don't have a relationship with employers, where do you start? So could you talk to us about that, Ruben?
Yes, well, we use the help of our faculty members in all the cities that we have campuses on. So we receive recommendations from them, and that's the way we started. We also have some outlines, since we were looking for senior people or representative of these companies, so they can give us more experience, more general view of what we should do, of what we should aim for, and also share with us some opportunities. We also included our alumni, since we have a lot of them in many cities, and they are already working, and that's also a source for our pack. And right now, for the national pack that we have, we already have 15 members, and we are working with them, and we are scheduling a next meeting in this month, so we can review the next curricula that we are working in.
Okay, so as Peter was saying, then alumni was definitely a good source. And then also, as you said, there's your professors, the faculty members sometimes have their own connections and ideas. Okay, that's a great place to start. And what was the criteria used to select the employers to be part of your committee?
Here in Peru, we don't have that much production or manufacturing companies. Mainly, we have a lot of mining industry and also service industries. So that's what we are looking for, to invite members of the pack that are related to these sectors. As mentioned before, we are looking also to invite senior representatives, and that's something that we have seen it's very helpful for us, since they have a lot of experience. They are currently in touch with what is happening, so their insights are very helpful for our curricula, and also defining what projects should we work in.
Okay, so it was a mix on like what you need, where the jobs are, and number two, you decided senior management participation would be important for this. Okay, at this point, I did want to go to Solomon, who unfortunately is still having network problems. So I will skip his question for now. Peter, could you tell us how you identify which employers to approach, building up on what Ruben was saying, to make sure that we find somebody like Solomon who's willing to put time and effort and is able to contribute to this discussion?
In the best case scenario, you're trying to find the right people based on the needs you have. So in doing that kind of self-reflection and priority setting exercise, you may identify that you have 2 or 3 particular things you're looking for. So you go out and you try and find the right people. That should be a mix of alumni and non-alumni. The truth is sometimes it's harder. In some countries where we've done this work, in smaller cities and towns, there are fewer employers. And so it's not always the same approach. But I guess I would say if there was one driving factor beyond the alignment between what do you need and what's out there, would be diversity. What we want is not to be caught up with the big names. We need the CEO of Toyota. Well, I'm not sure you need the CEO of Toyota. You may sometimes, and I can tell you from experience, there were times on our pack where what we needed was for the program to gain greater attention and exposure. And if, well, for example, at one point we're moving internationally, and so we needed to raise the profile. Well, then we needed people who had the capacity to do that. But often when you bring in the CEO of a company, they're out of touch with what does it take for that entry level position? What are the skills needed today? Because perhaps they entered 30 years ago. And so things may be different. And as much as they stay abreast of things and get briefed on stuff, the actual hiring manager may be of greater value to your pack and your students and your program than the CEO. And so we want a mix of different levels within industry. We would like to see industry associations where they exist, along with small, medium, and large enterprise. Where we have that diversity of years of experience, role, etc., and alignment between our goals and objectives and their motivations, we have success.
Those are some really practical tips. So you're not just going after the CEO, actually the middle management that might be able to also put in the time needed and work with you more consistently. Thanks for that, Peter. And I'd like to ask Ruben now, for a perspective as an education institution, what benefits are coming out this and how are you measuring success?
We have raised our employment rate, and also we have the opportunity to develop more amount of projects with them. And that's something that we have seen with our teachers, and also more opportunities for our students to make practice. So that's something that we value a lot. We want to increase that, and that what's what we're aiming for.
Yeah, that sounds like the goldmine of benefits, employment rates, and giving your students the opportunity to engage so that employment rate can stay high. So what is your key performance indicator for measuring success regarding this industry engagement?
Right now, here we are working with the NPS, the Net Promoter Score. Since we have an office that works in a transversal way, that it's related to these work opportunities, we are depending on them right now. But since this year, we're working also a particular program, our industrial engineer program here in Peru, so we can help them to contact more easily these employers.
And an important point here is, because a lot of people that have set it up already in our audience are saying that there are challenges involved, and the ones that haven't want to know what the challenges are. So could you talk us through the challenges that you faced putting this committee together and running it?
Well, we have many challenges. One of them was probably the time that we need from these members to give us. Also, the fact that they are all volunteers, or we have to accommodate their needs to what we can offer them. Also, since they are from many backgrounds, they respond differently to the invitations or to the proposals. Also, since we have here in Peru not that many big companies, and they are already related to some other colleges, some other universities, well, we have to work with the middle companies and also small companies to get more opportunities for our students and alumni. Not everybody can attend to a meeting at the same time. So we have to check some alternatives, like also getting their feedback through a Google form, an individual meeting, or maybe through an email.
Exactly. It's how do you get people to commit? And it sounds like you're coming up with really good strategies to do this, like accommodating to their schedules, incentivizing them. It goes back to what Peter was saying about incentivizing them. How do you get them to do this? And the big point you made is not only going after the big companies, but also the small and medium ones, which is the case for many of the people in our audience. In the economies we work in, those are the companies that are more prevalent. And then another question, so that's in identifying them and getting them to commit. Are you seeing any challenges actually maintaining this committee besides time commitment? Like, is there any conflict between industry and academic staff? Maybe conflicting input from different industry players, resistance from the staff? Like, could you talk us through that?
We have some inputs that we received from them. For example, one of them was that we needed to reinforce, or we needed to get better at the soft skills. But that generates also a problem, since our professors, for example, share with us that they consider that we shouldn't put that much amount of credits or hours into soft skills. Maybe that could be out of the curricula as something external. We also have to consider this or review this for this new curricula that we are working right now. Also, something that we notice is that, for example, they recommend that we should work in the English level in our students. And that was something interesting, but then again, our professors recommended us also that we should leave that out of the curricula, and also consider that maybe that is going to be replaced for the AI in the future. So they doesn't feel that much sure or convinced that we should put it in the curricula. It should be out of it. Basically, when we, for example, get some meetings with members of the PAC, there are some issues that they are not also so sure about. For example, the impact of the AI in the industries. That is something that we're working in. So I believe that's the main three issues that we're working right now with.
So it sounds like your committee is bringing up some big topics here, like impact of AI. I mean, I'm not surprised that they haven't come up with a solution to that one. Most of the world hasn't. But yeah, also this issue of English or not. That's interesting. On that, I'd like to come back to you, Peter, on the challenges you've seen across the world, because you've worked internationally, with what that universities face, the challenges setting up and maintaining these committees, and if you've seen these discussions come up about, what do we do about AI, and should we teach English or not, given it's the international language?
I always think of PACs as the art of the possible. I often set out sort of what would be the dream team. What's the right work plan? What would we like to accomplish? But then it becomes what's possible. And for me, it's the coalition of the willing. I don't always get everyone that I want on the team, but I take the energy that exists. And effective PAC management is about, channeling that energy and doing the most with what you have. And my experience has been in all over the world that people are not so sure what we're asking them. This is a new concept in many places. They're skeptical. What do you mean you're not paying me? I don't really know what you want from me, and what will this look like? And so there's some confusion, some skepticism, but when you get them in the room, there's a magic that happens where there's either a kind of constructive, competitive nature, or they simply dig into the problem. So let me give you some concrete examples. When we were in Ghana and we focused on automotive technology, we brought the 5 large automotive manufacturers who were operating inside and outside of Accra together. And before we even started, somebody said, we've got to get your students into our workplace as interns. And everyone said, okay, so how many students do you have? And we told them, and they said, okay, so we'll take them. And then I was able to say, well, what if instead of having one co-op experience in one factory, each student rotated so they had an experience at all 5? You know, within moments, they were all in agreement. In another example in Ghana as well, by the time we set out the work plan, the industry had already come back with a needs analysis. Well, what companies are planning to hire in the next 3 months and 6 months and 12 months? What are the things they think they need? We almost couldn't manage or control or channel the enthusiasm because it was so significant. So we're looking for that group of people. And again, don't always get what you want, but who have that kind of enthusiasm. My experience as a faculty member was I was doing work with experiential education and PACs long before we had a name for it, because I was looking for ways of getting the program to the next level. Let me give you one more example. At a technical college where I worked, we had by far the best aviation program in the country. It was competitive globally. It was an aviation degree, and our students were all hired directly into the major national airline carriers in Canada. But the PAC went to industry and said, what can we do to take it to the next level? The first reaction was, well, you're already the best in the country. Your graduates are successful. And said, no, but what can we do to take it to the next level? And I said, well, if you had time on some big simulators so that the training period instead of 4 months might be, 4 weeks. You say, well, okay, so what do we have to do to get that? And they said, well, a simulator's $1 million. Well, we at the college, we didn't have that. Our PAC members couldn't raise that kind of money, but the PAC and the college went to the manufacturer of the simulator, and within a short while, they had donated to the program. So the period of time for training to get our graduates into those big planes had just now been compressed. Industry is over the moon because now it costs less to get those pilots big plane ready. Students are thrilled because they're now even more globally competitive, and this has opened up doors for them. And the faculty now know that they've pushed what they can do to prepare their students and to build the best program even further. And so I think where there's a will, there's a way. We can find the right people with the right motivations and make those connections. Sometimes by trial and error, you keep trying until something sticks. But most of the time, that enthusiasm is there. We just have to kind of unleash it and channel it so that it focuses on the kinds of key priorities we've identified.
Yeah, no, and thank you so much, Peter, for representing Solomon here, who unfortunately hasn't been able to join due to the network. But that's exactly like what he's been doing, representing what he's been doing in Ghana and giving this taste of how it's working in Ghana, like how the university was able to move industry and employers from what do you want from us? What do you mean you're not going to pay us? To, oh my God, we don't know what to do with all your suggestions and enthusiasm and taking it forward. So I think that is an amazing story. And I'm sure it's inspiring our audience. And I think the other thing I'm taking away from what you're saying is, even if you're very advanced, like the college you've been working at in Canada, you can still take it to the next level by involving industry more, like getting something like a simulator. So that's great to hear. And I do want to move to Q&A very soon because I can see loads of questions popping up. Just one last thing I'll ask Peter and Ruben to comment on before we move to Q&A, because we hear this from so many clients and people that ask us for help on setting these committees up. What would you advise education institutions to do with regards to regulations that might be a barrier to implementing the recommendations put forward by industry. For example, many countries have a regulation that teachers need to hold a PhD. So how would you bring in practitioners that don't have a PhD to teach when it's so clear that's what you need to do? Or your assessments have to be in the form of a written exam. And it's clear you need to start testing your students in a different way and assessing them in a different way to provide the skills, the soft skills that industry is saying you need to include. Do you have any suggestions, advice for these institutions, Peter?
I love the question because in essence, this is the heart of a PAC. The idea for me is you got to find a way. So the example that Ruben raises where faculty are reluctant to see the value of particular things or concerned that those, say, training in the soft skills are going to put pressure on the amount of time available for the kinds of core teachings that they believe really must be the heart of the program. And so my experience is either as a determined faculty member or program chair or in partnership with the PAC is, okay, let's do it differently. So we're gonna make this an extracurricular thing. So for many years in the programs that I was teaching in, we'd have mentorship circles with industry leaders, and that would be done for those who are willing, outside of the regular curriculum. We had interview preparation things. We videotape people being interviewed by actual industry leaders who are hiring so that they could get that experience, watch themselves on video, get coaching about sort of how things would change. And then we started to see the results. All of these things can be done in many ways. In the case of Ghana, oftentimes, and this is not unique to Ghana, but in some sectors, public, for example, in some countries, this is a lot of what is done is driven by the regulator. So they put out edicts that say you must do this, you must do that, and that becomes part of just the way we think and the way we behave. So we're waiting for someone to tell us to do this. The truth is, in every university and college around the world, there's some faculty member who finds a way. They don't see the excuses except as obstacles or challenges, but they overcome them and they find a way. In the case of Continental in Peru, it's very rare, but I got to tell you, there was motivation for excellence was not an issue ever. It was to be the very best in the country, in the region, in the continent, in the world. And I think again, you channel that energy. And so my experience has been, if you can't get it one way, you can get it the other way. And oftentimes, and even in the case of Ghana, it's not hard to inspire people because those faculty members chose this profession for a reason. They want to nurture, they want to help, they want to make better. And it just takes a moment to re-energize them, inspire them. What can we do to make this university the best in the country? What can we do to make our graduates more successful? Let's do it for Ghana. Let's do it for Africa. And all of a sudden, those energies, that sort of, why they got into this business to begin with, and then just the common sense of it all. This makes sense. If industry and academia get together, there's no limit to what they can accomplish for their students, thereby benefiting everybody. And so most of these obstacles and these challenges can be overcome. You just have to find a way.
Right. So, finding a way around the regulations. And Ruben, as you can see here, you have a big fan for Continental University. Did you want to make any comments about this particular challenge and how you as a university overcame it?
Yes, we basically have to work, for example, we're with our evaluation department, so they can work very close with our teachers to overcome these problems, these issues. For example, when we have to use a different way to measure the soft skills, and also a different way to evaluate these students for the course that they are taking in that particular moment. In Peru, for example, we must have a percentage of PhD doctors, PhD professors and at least they have to get this master degree to be a professor right now. So we don't have that barrier maybe, or that restriction. That's something that we must do. So that's not really an issue here, but that's our view. That's what I wanted to share with you guys.
Thank you, Ruben. Yeah, you guys clearly like see the regulations, the barriers, and just move past them. And one last point I'm going to make before going to Q&A, just to represent Solomon here. I mean, look at what Takoradi is doing in Ghana, where there are not just regulatory, if there are regulatory issues, there are big issues like network. So, I mean, their network has dropped, but they're still moving forward. So I just want to honor Solomon here, who wasn't able to join, and Takoradi. So coming to our Q&A, because we have loads of them, let me start. Okay, let me ask Ruben on this one. What kind of staff and technical support is required to keep the pack running smoothly? So, yeah, the support from your side as Ruben managing it.
Well, right now we have 7 members as faculty members that are helping us to develop and to work with this pack. But in the past, we managed that with just 2 faculty members. We also have the help of some areas that are transversal to all our university. There are around 6 areas that work with us very closely, and really demands many time from us. But it is worth it, since we can get some agreements, we can get some better opportunities for our students and also for our alumni.
Okay, thank you for that. I hope that answered your question, Marta. And so I'm moving in order here. I'm going to go to the one from Rowena, and that's, are the PACS program specific? And I'll ask you, Peter, on this one. And if not, how do you relate the PAC feedback back to each program curricula on offer?
They must be specific. I'll give you an example. A dean of a business school, a globally recognized top 20 business school, contacted me about this and said, so we're going to establish a PAC for the MBA. And I said, tell me more about the program. Well, they have 5 different MBAs. For example, one of them is in mining. Well, the closer we get to the program, the more relevant and specific and useful the advice and assistance is going to be. And so really what they need is 5 PACs, one for every specific program, so that we can meet the specific needs of those particular curricula, those particular students, that particular industry. And so for me, it starts there. The more specific, the more on the ground, the better. Then we're not talking about advice per se, we're actually talking about assistance, and it's specific.
Okay, thank you for that, Peter. And then I'm going to come to you, Ruben, again, because we have a question specifically addressed at you, and that is, what's your view of the future of industry and academia, and also advisory boards impact in Peru after last year's political disruptions, and considering the huge potential of wind industry that starts to grow? That's a big question, Ruben. But hopefully you can help.
Well, we understand that there are many changes that are coming this year. We also have some very big challenge since until this week. We are having some changes in SUNEDU, CINEACE. I know because I have some friends that work very close with them, and we are just, as Dr. Peter said, we are just have to adapt ourselves to these new waves, if you want to call it that way. We really don't have a clear overview of what is going to happen in the next months. But we are looking forward to receive some more information from them, so we can adapt our program and we can meet the needs of the government, and also we can meet the need of the industry, because our alumni work in both of them, also with the public sector and the private sector. So it's very difficult to get a firm answer about this, but we just have to be very receptive to what is going on and be reactive, and with the help of the PAC, try to anticipate of what is going to happen. So that's why we're having a meeting also this month, and we hopefully get some insights, some feedback, or some recommendations from them. It's very, very hard to know what is going to happen.
Yes, you can't really predict the future, but you're working on it. Okay, that's, but by listening to all your different partners. Thank you, Ruben. Okay, I'll come to you, Peter, on this next one from John, who's a retired rector of Webster University in Uzbekistan. He served on a PAC, and this is about the AI. And I'm glad that somebody's brought this up again. This point that Ruben had brought up, AI and how that's affecting curricula, jobs. Thus, it needs to affect curricula. And that faculty are worried about plagiarism and are looking to universities from a strategic position urgently. So just on that piece, could you comment on what you're seeing in that area? What are universities doing to kind of not just predict this AI, the impact of AI on jobs, but also how to manage it, right? Because of this idea of plagiarism.
Most of us are trying to figure it out as it unfolds. And so this is one of those extreme examples where no one has the right idea or the total picture of where this is going to go and what it's going to mean. And so I look at it this way. I could sit there as a faculty member or as a program chair and try to figure it out all by myself, or I could bring leaders within the industry for whom we prepare students, bring them together and talk about it and experience it together and come up with solutions together. So this is exciting and frightening all at the same time. And I can tell you it's less frightening when I'm not alone, wondering where it's all going to end up. So when we bring those folks together, we are stronger. We're going to be in a better position to try and understand its impact. On a very, very specific level, as a faculty member, we're just pivoting the kinds of evaluations we use to make them less applicable. So in the early days of AI today, if I said, write an essay on PACs and how they help universities and colleges, well, AI probably can assist a student in plagiarizing an outcome. But if we can come up with applied and very kind of case-specific assessments, then it's harder and harder to cheat. Now, again, as AI becomes more sophisticated, we're going to have to be more sophisticated, but I'm not going to figure that out by myself. I'm going to work with my partners to do that.
Right, and I can see Ruben there nodding in agreement. He knows how hard this is. Another question directed at for you, Peter, here, someone, Jesser, again, is, in your experience, what kind of soft skill is most relevant and impactful for an advisor when participating and interacting in an advisory board or committee? And how can you bring and practice the skill during academic life?
I'd like to address that question, but also an earlier one from our same questioner, and sort of the importance of soft skills. And so I've just come out of 3 days of 10 interviews a day for an elite industry internship that I run for our provincial government. And I can tell you that every one of the applicants had the grades and the courses and all of the awards and the TA-ships, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But what distinguished them was soft skills, right? So what we're knowing from employers is that the capacity, no matter how smart you are, to share information is crucial, whether it's in written or verbal form. And more importantly, is the only value added human resources are going to have now is the capacity for critical analysis. So if they can't think, then we're going to replace them with AI. And so we've got to do this. And the earlier question about sort of, well, what do you do when there's no room in the curriculum or the faculty don't? Well, you know, as I say, we do it as an extracurricular thing, but in the last 5 years, we turned that extracurricular thing into a course that by all accounts now, all the partners, the university, the industry, the students, and the faculty is the thing that separates our students from the others in the competitive market. So soft skills within the pack are just as important, partly because the dynamic of the group is the greatest dictator of success for a pack. Now, part of that dynamic can be altered, adjusted, nudged by the chair. And it's really important that the chair is kind of very attuned to the sort of care and feeding of the pack, because we want to make sure that it's functioning. But in terms of those very specific soft skills, part of this is a commitment to the task, an enthusiasm for the role, but then an ability to listen, ability to compromise, ability to sort of be creative in that context. And packs have cycles. So they start off and they're excited and they've got a work plan. And well, once you've updated the curriculum, once you've created experiential education things, once you've done some resource and fundraising, you start to say, okay, so our work is done here. Well, no, it's never done, because the change is so rapid and reoccurring, and we can always do better. And so managing that those expectations and that energy is really important. When we focus on getting the right people, part of that's a very explicit conversation about, so here's what we need. What are you interested in, able, and willing to do? Part of that's also the fit. Just like when we hire, we're looking at the personal characteristics of people. Will they fit in with the team? Are they team players? Will they get along? Or do we need something very different that we don't have that we're looking for? So it's really important, whether it's our programs or our PAC members, those soft skills can make or break. Because if you've got 5 CEOs who all have egos the size of the state, and they are used to dictating and not working together, on paper, it looks like a great PAC, but it's not going to function well. So thinking about those things is important.
Yes. So just so the response is definitely they're important. And basically, you're looking for people to collaborate, not just bring in their technical expertise, and willing to put the time in. So we are coming to the end of our webinar, and there are so many more questions. Thank you everyone for your questions. Unfortunately, we don't have time for the rest of the questions, but what I want to say is, first of all, thank you for joining us. Thank you to the speakers, Ruben and Peter, and unfortunately Solomon wasn't able to join, but he's been trying for the past hour. Thank you everyone for joining, and I hope you have some good ideas now on moving forward and taking your programs forward through engaging with industry formally. If you have any other questions about the IFC Vitae program, how we might be able to help your institution on employability outcomes, please don't hesitate to contact us through our website, which is always provided in the emails that we send you. And as I said, we have a special request. Please fill in the survey that we send out right at the end, because that helps us deliver what you need. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your time. And thank you, Peter and Ruben, again. This has been super interesting and helpful, I hope, for everyone.